Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Topical Talkology. And I've just been chatting with Alexi and Theo. Do you want to say good morning, guys?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Alexi. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning. Theo. So the real question is, and let's be quite brutal about it, is the Labour Party dead in the UK? Because let's face it, after the last set of council elections and the loss of Hartlepool, which was actually, I think, ever since it became a constituency, it was always with Labour. And has the tide changed? I mean, are they rejecting basically socialism in the UK, or are they rejecting are they rejecting their leadership? And despite all the mess that I think Boris has made of some of the things, he seems to be more popular than ever. So actually, I'm going to throw this to Alexi. Do you want to get started?
Yeah, I think what was quite surprising was confirmed once again the general election of a couple of years ago, that a lot of the staunch Labour voters in the northwest especially of England have again, through the council votes recently, voted for Conservatives. They've gained more seats, and I think this back to identity and back to leadership. Now, whether you think Boris Johnson is a great leader or not, he's a character. He actually stands for something. He's a personality. And personalities on the media, via social media, on the media, come out, stand out, and count for something. And the vaccination program, whether he delegated it to the military or not, has worked. And that's his feel-good gravy train. You know, he's actually riding on it. And at the same time, Mr. Keir Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer, of the Labour Party has had opportunities to, let's say, stand up and count and put the Labour Party back on the map, and he hasn't. His own senior people are now saying, sorry, is he the right guy to lead? Even he tried to depose his deputy leader, and actually he forgot that actually his deputy leader is elected by the Labour Party. He couldn't actually remove her and had to actually swap jobs and give her something else to do. And there was a lot of infighting in order to get that sorted. So you can see he hasn't got a grip on what's going on, but more importantly, he doesn't have a personality. So nobody associates with him or connects with him at all. He's very, very sort of one-dimensional.
Well, I mean, he did throw his deputy leader under the bus, really, didn't he? Because but the thing is, he hasn't got the character. I mean, it's almost as though it seemed that the Labour Party or socialism or left-wing politics seems to go with the wokeism that is coming. You know, he's bent the knee to these to Black Lives Matter and to these other type of groups, and which just symbolises what a weak leader he actually is. But more importantly, the question I like to ask: why is it that the Tories did so well in all these council seats and winning Hartlepool, yet so many Labour mayors were elected, including in London? Which is significant.
I spoke to an ex-colleague of mine, a friend of mine who lives in the Liverpool area. Very, very, voted Labour all his life, and his words work. And I'm only saying what he said. I'm only repeating. I'll paraphrase. He said, "I will not vote for those communists." Those were his words. We said, I don't even recognize this Labour Party anymore. I don't know what they stand for. And for me, they would be, if we gave them the power, they would be dangerous. Those were his words.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening here, but if people are actually witnessing what's happening in the States under Joe Biden, which seems to have gone more socialist as things have gone on, I think are people using that as an example of all the mess that is happening over there as to not to let it happen over here? Theo?
Well, you see, there are two things. The first observation is, oh my God, because Keir Starmer is an example of what most judges are like. He just chose not to become a judge and go into politics. So you're talking about someone heavily shifted on the Asperger spectrum without actually much understanding of proper nuance. And this is the hands that our country's justice rests in. So that's the first point. And he happens to have gone into politics. So the second point is the fact that you're right, personality. And what he's done the huge mistake of wokeism. And politics is, of course, about, unfortunately, well, modern politics is about understanding the pulse, is about understanding what people want to hear, because you have to get elected. And Keir Starmer wasn't elected. People just put him there because they thought that he had a presence of gravitas to replace the loony left. I can't even remember his name now, but
Jeremy
Corbyn, exactly. But the fact is, he doesn't have the personality. He doesn't understand how to get elected properly into power and what's required. And instead, what he's done is he's done the legalistic, safe route, which is wokeism. And quite frankly, we don't want to see wokeism in leaders, because leaders are meant to be a little bit, controversial and powerful, because power doesn't come without a little bit of controversy. And God knows how Justin Trudeau got into power, unless his wokeism came out after he was in power. And as for the mayors, I think that's just local personalities.
You're jumping around there because you've just gone to Canada and back to the UK again. I mean, in terms of someone, in terms of Justin Trudeau, I mean, isn't he sort of feeding off the reputation of his father, who was quite significant in Canada? But the question I had it on the tip of my tongue and it's actually gone. In terms of, I don't know, I've totally lost it. I'll probably come back.
While you're thinking about that, Andy, there's one thing I wanted to add on Theo's point. Listened to the Times Radio the other day, and I thought it was quite ironic that the public have been asking for many years for politicians to have a more of an experience and a sense of reality in terms of having run businesses or being in touch with reality. Whereas the comment I heard about Keir Starmer was the complete opposite. Was he's actually not an experienced or career politician, so he doesn't understand the system very, very well. So he doesn't, and that's part of the reason why he doesn't know what to do. He's actually lost. I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, I mean, do you not think? And my questions come back to me. Do you not think, though, that since we've had Brexit, and I think people have accepted that we've had Brexit, that there was almost a level of people reclaiming their identity as Britain, or as British in some ways, and that's why they've become more right-wing, whereas the left are constantly looking to push a more global agenda? Because if you actually look what's happening in the EU at the moment, everything seems to be crumbling over there, albeit that we were only hearing on one side of the media.
Yeah, I think that was a tiny little blip on the sentiment and what was going on, but we are so mired and swamped with wokeism. I don't think that's actually valid anymore. I mean, the fact is we're still too scared to actually call anyone anything at the moment, aren't we? We're all going down the rabbit hole of shims and scissors and whatever.
And Theo, we were talking about something yesterday about being scared, and I think we can now link it to the conversation we were having yesterday. And I'm going to be very careful how I say this. I'm, again, not 1 minute suggesting that the coronavirus is not true, it's not real, and it's not a myth, and so on. However, I've met lots of what I would call grounded people with common sense, multimillionaires, not very poor people of different parts of society, who are with it, compass mentum all there, and they will whisper to me more. Let's say 8 out of 10 will go, look, I get the coronavirus thing, but we've got to carry on with our lives. We just can't carry on like this, the way we are, because it's going to be with us for many years. It's a virus. So are we just going to carry on having these restrictions forevermore? Is this it? Well, he said, no offense, but the hospitals are there for a reason. They're there to take care of people for all different illnesses. So why can't we just carry on with life and stop using the variant and this variant and that variant as a continuous excuse? And everybody's afraid to say anything.
Well, but here's the problem that's happening with the National Health Service at the moment, though. I mean, people aren't being able to be treated for other ailments, and it's months. It's months in the. They have to spend months and months on the waiting list. Yep. Partly to do with funding, partly to do with an overflux of immigration that we're still getting, probably even illegal immigration to that degree. I know that we're looking to curb that. but they just haven't got the manpower and the finances to be able to deal with everything that's happening. And it's still COVID related, which seems to be more PR at the moment.
I mean, there was a TED talk given by a psychiatrist who says exactly what we've been saying for months, which is, okay, there might well be a virus, but there are billions of viruses anyway. There have been more deaths in the 1957 epidemic and the 1968 epidemic than there had been with corona this year. The figures have been massaged so that 2 seasons are now being quoted as one. So they're not 100,000 deaths because they are combining last year and this year. And he says there's a mortality of less than 0.1% in the under 70s, and the average age of death is over 80. In fact, higher than the average lifespan.
I mean, I know it's topical because we keep on moving back onto COVID, but I'd just like to sort of move back onto the subject matter itself and talk about whether, actually, Alexei, will the Labour Party recover? Or is it likely to recover in the UK?
I think the Labour Party is going to take longer than it's ever done, even under Neil Kinnock in the 80s where they lost their way. I think it's going to take a very, very long time. I think if you go back to the figures of the last general election, the Labour Party, I think, lost, was it 80 or 90 seats? They went from near 300 seats to now 200. I mean, that is a huge loss, the biggest loss in whatever it was, 70, 80 years. This is massive for them. And they've got a barrister. Well, they've got a barrister who is a sir, who is running the party. So for me, he doesn't identify as a Labour leader. And you've got somebody called Tony Blair, as Theo just mentioned, who is, funny enough, coming out quite often with his opinions on whatever, because I've got a feeling that he wants to come back.
I think he wants to come back because his gravy train has stopped. And as you know, one of my patients was invited to Chequers because he was a grade A superstar, and he was having tea with Tony Blair and his wife. And his wife was desperate to stay as First Lady. And Tony Blair was desperate to stop being Prime Minister because he wanted to make money before he was too old.
The thing is, he's got enough money now. He's a billionaire now from his investments and everything, so he doesn't need to.
So now he wants significance again, quite clearly.
But the thing is, I think we've brought this up before. The Labour Party have only been in twice in the last 50, 60 years or so.
And when they were in with Tony Blair, it's because he was more conservative than the Conservatives. That's
I think his father was a Tory councillor, or Tony, or he was he was Tory affiliated. But it wasn't until they became more central as a party, hence it was called New Labour, that they actually got in. I mean, I think after the Maggie years, and I think the thing is, I didn't even expect, I think from what I remember, when John Major actually won the general election, he wasn't expected to win. And the Tories were already ready to regroup and give it to Labour for 4 years. But when he actually won, they were almost caught off guard and had to restructure very quickly. But the thing is, Labour Party, as I said, particularly in the north, where it's quite influential, or the Labour Party was, because it was very much a working man's party. They seem to have turned their backs on Labour as a whole.
Well, I think it's again back to identity and relevance. If you ask, I'm sorry to use mission statements and vision, but if you look at any large successful company in the world, whether it be Google, whether it be Amazon, whether it be Thapos or whatever, they've got a mission statement. They stand for something. They are the whatever in their field. Labour Party, if you ask anybody, what are the Labour Party, what they stand for, nobody can answer that question anymore. Yeah. Are they for the workers? Are they not? Are they? Yeah.
Well, we don't know. So here's a question I've got for Theo, though. Is there room for another party to actually come in, a totally new, different party that could actually jump in and start becoming quite influential?
Absolutely.
And what side would that be on?
Well, they can call it the Common Sense Party, because people do want to see where the appeal of Boris Johnson, you see, is that he's a bit of a rebel and not woke. Well, you could take, I mean, Labour could have done exactly that. They could have actually stood out against coronavirus and said, guys, this is absolute drivel.